So as I mentioned, four-cylinder, 1, 2, 3, 4, four-cylinder diesel engine, which means there's no spark plugs. This engine works on compressing the fuel to a very high compression ratio, which ignites the fuel itself, so there is no spark plugs. I mentioned it's a manual transmission. This transmission is, for all intents and purposes, functional. This would be hooked to the drive shaft, whether it's driving. So a bunch of gears, two shafts, and depending on how you run the shifter is going to give you first, second, third, fourth, and even reverse. So we'll actually be able to see the rotation of the shaft change in reverse. Right now it's in neutral, so there's no connection between the engine, which might be turning, or if it was running, there's no connection between that and the wheels of the powertrain. So you can see it's free to run. But I believe this is a clutch mechanism, which this thing's not really, well, it's there, but it's the clutch, the function of the clutch is not really part of this demonstration. Gears, which this toothed wheel would be used to engage the starting motor to turn the thing to get the engine to start. When you look at this, let's see what was pretty standard. Oil pan, oil filter in the base. This little switch is for demonstration unit. It's plugged into the wall, and I'm going to turn it with a small electric motor, which is in place of the starter motor right now. So I can actually turn this at a slow speed. Crankshaft, pistons in the arms, inlet and outlet ports, upper camshaft, valves, rings. What else can I show you up here? This may be where you'd add oil to the engine. This is air inlet, coming in through the air inlet, through the turbine, into the air intake manifold and distributed to whichever cylinder has its valve open. And then on the exhaust valve will open, the hot exhaust comes out the exhaust manifold, down through the turbine, which spins the turbine. On the exhaust side, which pumps air on the inlet side, waste valve, what else? A little oil line coming in for lubrication. An alternator, a little bit of a cutout of the alternator. Alternator's driven off the crankshaft pulley, and it's got a smaller belt driving the fan to cool and the alternator. A larger toothed belt would be a timing belt from the crank up to the top camshaft. This belt also drives the oil pump. You see the oil filter here is cut away. You can see the oil filter. And the drive mechanism from this is actually geared off the fuel system. So again, that's all coming off the belt, tooth belt from the crankshaft, coming through, rotating the fuel pump. You can see all the pieces in here. And this would be the throttle. So when I open this up, it would push more fuel up into the cylinders. And through a gear setup, it's also driving the oil pump. Dipstick to check the oil level. And this would typically be a starter motor, but right now we've got for this demonstration unit, it's just an electric motor that's plugged into the wall, so that when I turn the switch on, it'll actually rotate this thing. So I guess you can see a fuel injector here, and maybe a glow plug. I believe that's what this one's going to be, a glow plug to get this thing started when it's cold. Head bolts, and it's pretty sharp. So do one more quick walk around here. Everything's painted nicely so you can see it. What else did I forget? Oh, thermostat on the cooling system. I'm not sure which one's inlet and which one's outlet. Water pump inside here, driven off again. The crankshaft through this smaller pulley. And the fan. I don't know what else I can show you. So let's take a moment, turn this thing on, and we'll do a walkthrough again. You'll see things moving around. Okay, so I've verified, not that it makes any difference, but it is in neutral. I can turn the drive shaft. You can see gears in the transmission moving, but there's nothing engaged. So there's no transfer of power if the motor was turning. So let's turn the motor. I can turn it on. It turns at a very slow speed. Remember, this is a demonstration unit, so we're not interested in having it go faster or anything. We wouldn't want to hurt anybody. So, all you can see inside, this comes around, you'll be able to see inside in the clutch plates. You see the springs and stuff that put the clutch plate together. So right now, if I hold onto the drive shaft here and stop it from moving, there's no power going to the drive shaft. And you can see the various gears turning around. So if I want to go to first gear, can you actually see that? Watch this piece come forward and engage that set of gears. Actually went backwards. There we go. Backwards. Neutral. First gear. Now if I come back here, I can't stop that. It's got power coming from it, to it. Sorry. So neutral. It's a little bit sticky, but I can stop it. First gear, that one moves. Second gear, it goes to a different position forward. Third gear, a different set. So it transfers power down to this shaft and then back up and out. Fourth gear is forward like that. Let's see what happens when I go into reverse. Okay, we have another set of gears, and this thing is now turning in the opposite direction. So it's turning counterclockwise now. Neutral, stop, first gear, and it's turning the same way. Why is that? There's reverse. So I did it wrong. There's no directions here. So this thing is actually what? 1, 2, 3. It's a 3-speed with a reverse. There now, I learned something. I thought it was a 4-speed with reverse. First gear is that one moving back and forth. Second gear is going to go forward. Third gear is this one. And now I've got reverse. Okay. First gear, turning, let's go to reverse. Now it's reverse this direction. So I can do this without a clutch. It's moving slow enough. I don't have any problem. So let's look up closer here. See the crankshaft turning, piston coming up, top dead center, back down. The fresh air inlet valve's open, so there's fresh air and fuel coming in, comes up, compresses, fires, and then on this upward stroke, the exhaust valve's going to open and out it comes. So it's making this a 4-stroke diesel engine. Inlet, open, draws fuel air mixture in, closes, compression stroke, ignition, power stroke, down, and this one's going to be an exhaust stroke. So you see the camshaft here, these lobes push on the valves. Both those valves are closed now. Watch this, when it comes around, it will push this valve open. There, it's starting to push it down. You can actually see it open. So that's the way that's going to work. What else can I show you here? Of course, there's no gases flowing, so the turbo's not working. Crankshaft's turning everything on the front of the engine. You see the water pump inside, cooling fan, the shaft, turning the fuel pump, and also the oil pump, and again the throttle. And I told you once already, this is just a motor. Typically would be a starter motor. This would be what would be the clutch, the regular setup. So this is an extremely nice demonstration unit, 4-stroke diesel engine with a 3-speed manual transmission. I hope that's showing up pretty good in the video. Every once in a while we have to throw some oil on to keep it lubricated. But anyway, hope you liked it.